Under the blinding ER lights, Liam Carter, a single dad paramedic on a double shift, pounded out compressions on a crash victim with glass in her hair and blood on her lips. The monitor stuttered, then a pulse rose, fragile but fighting. Nurses exhaled. Liam peeled back the oxygen mask to check her airway and froze. He knew that face. Serena Whitaker, the CEO who'd signed the memo that ended his career, cost his home, crushed his future, now breathing only because he refused to let her die. What would you do if you had to save the person who destroyed your life? Liam chose humanity. But the truth was about to force him to face everything. The rain came down cold and relentless in Alexandria Harbor that October night, drumming against the windows of a cramped second-floor apartment where dawn hadn't yet broken. In the kitchen, a 7-year-old girl named Emma Carter stood on a stool, carefully flipping pancakes on a skillet that had seen better days. Her father's lunchbox sat open on the counter, and she pressed a homemade sticker onto the lid, crude letters in purple marker spelling out, "For my hero." Liam Carter emerged from the bathroom, uniform already on, dark circles under his eyes, betraying the double shift he just started. At 36, he moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd learned to do more with less. He was lean, capable, his hands steady from years of crisis management. First as an aerospace engineer, now as a contract paramedic driving ambulances through the city's toughest hours. Emma turned, pancake spatula in hand, and beamed. "I made breakfast, Dad." He crossed the small kitchen and kissed the top of her head. "You're getting too good at this, kiddo. Someone has to take care of you," she said. Matter of fact, at 7, Emma had already learned what stability meant and what it felt like when it disappeared. She remembered moving boxes, her mother's suitcase by the door, the landlord's angry voice. She remembered her father holding her while she cried, promising they'd be okay. And somehow they were different, smaller, but okay. Liam plated the pancakes and ate standing up, checking his phone. Rent was due in 6 days. He had the money barely, but it meant no repairs on the truck and another month of hoping nothing broke. He glanced at Emma, who was carefully packing carrot sticks into his lunchbox alongside the pancakes. She didn't know that the sticker she'd made was covering a dent from when he'd thrown the box against the wall 3 years ago the night the termination letter arrived. That letter had changed everything. Liam had been a lead engineer at Whitaker Industries, responsible for quality assurance on aerospace fuel systems. He discovered that finance had ordered cuts to materials at 2-3% reduction that shaved millions off quarterly costs, but introduced risk. He'd written the memo. He'd sent it up the chain. He'd followed every protocol. And when a minor incident occurred in the fabrication wing, a pressure valve failure, no injuries contained quickly, the company hadn't investigated the root cause. They'd investigated him. The termination memo had come with Serena Whitaker's electronic signature at the bottom. Violation of safety protocols. It was a lie. And it had stuck. His engineering license was revoked pending litigation he couldn't afford. His wife Bridget had left 6 weeks later, unable to handle the financial freefall. The house went into foreclosure, and Liam, holding his daughter's hand in a motel parking lot, had made a choice. He would start over. Not bitter. Not broken. Just different. He'd trained as a paramedic, passed the certification, and found work with a contracting agency that didn't ask too many questions. The pay was less than half what he'd made before. But it was honest work, and on the nights when his hands compressed a chest and pulled someone back from the edge, he remembered why he'd always believed in doing the right thing, even when the right thing cost him everything. Across the city, in a glass tower that overlooked the harbor, Serena Whitaker sat alone in her corner office as the first light of dawn touched the skyline. At 34, she was one of the youngest CEOs in the industry, a position she'd inherited when her father, Richard Whitaker, died of a heart attack 18 months ago. The board had expected her to be a figurehead. She'd proven them wrong by driving 2 consecutive quarters of record profit. But the cost of that success sat heavy in her chest, especially in the quiet hours before the office filled with noise. She scrolled through an old file on her computer. A safety memo flagged for review 3 years ago. Liam Carter's name was at the top. She'd signed off on his termination, but she couldn't remember reading the details. Her assistant had marked it urgent. Legal had attached a recommendation. Finance had noted the cost implications. She'd clicked approve from 30,000 feet, flying back from an investor meeting, trusting the system. But lately, the system felt like a trap. The board pushed for expansion. The CFO, Damian Cross, presented cost-saving measures that looked brilliant on spreadsheets, but felt hollow in practice. Workers on the production floor avoided her eyes when she toured the facilities. And some nights, like tonight, she woke at 3:00 the morning, wondering if her father would be proud of the empire she was building, or horrified. She closed the file and rubbed her temples. In 6 hours, she had a meeting with Damian about the next phase of restructuring. He wanted to cut another 12 positions and outsource quality control. The numbers worked. The ethics didn't. But she hadn't figured out how to say that without sounding weak. Serena shut down her computer, grabbed her coat, and headed for the elevator. She'd drive home, try to sleep, and face tomorrow the same way she faced every day. By convincing herself that difficult decisions came with the job, she never made it home. The call came through Liam's radio at 11:47 p.m. Multi-vehicle collision, Riverside Bridge, possible fire. Too critical. He and his partner Flynn, a 29-year-old former Army medic with a dry sense of humor and steady hands, hit the lights and cut through the rain-slicked streets. The bridge was chaos. A sedan had hydroplaned and clipped a coupe, sending it spinning into the guardrail. The coupe's front end was crumpled, airbags deployed, and the smell of gasoline hung sharp in the cold air. Smoke curled from under the hood. Police were already setting flares, redirecting traffic, shouting over the wind. Liam grabbed the jump kit and sprinted toward the coupe. Through the shattered driver's window, he saw her, a woman slumped against the deflated airbag, blood streaking her temple, glass glittering in her blonde hair. He checked the door, jammed. Flynn appeared with the Halligan bar, and together they pried it open. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Liam's voice was calm, professional. No response. He stabilized her cervical spine while Flynn cut the seatbelt. They eased her onto the pavement away from the gasoline smell, and Liam began his assessment. Airway obstructed. He suctioned blood and debris, inserted an oropharyngeal airway, and reached for the bag valve mask. Breathing shallow, labored. He squeezed the bag in smooth, even compressions, watching her chest rise. Circulation, carotid pulse. Weak and thready. Disability, pupils, sluggish but reactive. Exposure lacerations to the scalp and forearm. Possible internal injuries. Flynn had the monitor on. Sinus Tatch 130. Pressures dropping 80/50. Liam glanced at the screen, then back at the woman's face. Something about her looked familiar, but he didn't have time to think about it. Start a line wide open. Get me the collar and backboard. They moved fast. IV access, saline bolus. Cervical collar secured. But as they lifted her onto the backboard, the monitor screamed. Asystole. No pulse. Start compressions. Liam said, and Flynn positioned himself over her chest. Liam grabbed the drug kit. Epinephrine 1 milligram 4 push. He watched the monitor, counted out loud, kept his breathing steady. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. 1 minute. 2 minutes. The rain hammered down, soaking through his uniform. Flynn didn't slow. Liam checked for a pulse. Nothing. Another round of epi. Another cycle. At 2 minutes 40 seconds, the monitor blipped. A single QRS complex. Then another sinus rhythm, weak but present. Liam felt the carotid pulse flutter under his fingertips and exhaled hard. "We got her," Flynn said, breathing heavy. "Nice work." They loaded her into the ambulance, and Liam climbed in the back while Flynn took the wheel. The ride to Alexandria General was 6 minutes. Liam kept one hand on her pulse, the other adjusting the oxygen flow, his eyes on the monitor. She was stable, barely, but alive. It wasn't until he leaned over to check her pupil response again, pulling the oxygen mask aside, that he saw her face clearly under the interior lights. His stomach dropped. He knew this woman, not personally, but he knew her. Serena Whitaker. The name hit him like a fist. He stared at her unconscious face. Rain and blood smeared across her pale skin, and for a moment, the ambulance seemed to tilt. This was the woman who had signed his termination letter, the CEO who had let finance and legal bury the truth, the person who had cost him his career, his marriage, his home, and he had just saved her life. His hands started to shake. He pulled them back, clenched them into fists, forced himself to breathe. The rage came fast and sharp. Every memory, every humiliation, every night, he'd sat at that cheap kitchen table, trying to explain to Emma why they couldn't afford the field trip or the new shoes or the birthday party. But then he looked at the monitor, at the pulse, at the rise and fall of her chest, and he heard his own voice in his head. The same voice that had gotten him through 3 years of survival. Patient first, everything else after. He reached for the blood pressure cuff and took another reading. 85/58. Rising, he adjusted the IV drip, checked her airway again, and did his job because that's what he did. That's who he was. When they pulled into the ER bay, he kept his voice steady as he handed off to Dr. Audrey Bennett, the attending on duty. Female mid-30s, MVC, with rollover assist on scene, ROSC after 2 rounds of EPI and 4 minutes of CPR. GCS was 3 at the scene, now 5. Vitals stabilizing, lacerations to the scalp and forearm, possible internal bleeding. Dr. Bennett nodded. Already moving. Good work, Liam. We'll take it from here. Flynn clapped him on the shoulder as they walked back to the rig. Hell of a save, man. You okay? Liam nodded. He wasn't okay, but he would be. He always was. By the time they restocked the ambulance and cleared the call, word had already spread through the ER. A nurse mentioned the name Whitaker, and suddenly, everyone knew. The CEO of Whitaker Industries, the woman whose face appeared in business journals and investor reports, was in trauma bay too. Flynn gave Liam a sidelong look. You know who that is, right? Yeah, Liam said quietly. I know. You good? I did my job. That's all. But when Liam walked past the trauma bay and saw Serena Whitaker through the glass, intubated, monitors beeping, a team working over her, he felt something crack inside his chest. Not pity, not satisfaction, just exhaustion. The kind that came from carrying weight for so long that you forgot what it felt like to put it down. He pulled out his phone and called home. Emma answered on the second ring, her voice sleepy. Dad. Hey, kiddo. Just wanted to hear your voice. Are you okay? He closed his eyes. Yeah. I'm okay. Did you finish your homework? Yes. And I left pancakes in the oven for when you get home. You're the best, Em. I know, she said. And he could hear her smile through the phone. Love you, Dad. Love you too. He hung up, leaned against the hallway wall, and let himself feel it, all of it. The anger, the confusion, the bitter irony that after 3 years, the universe had given him the power to decide whether Serena Whitaker lived or died, and he'd chosen to save her. Not because she deserved it, but because he wasn't the kind of man who let people die just because they'd hurt him. 3 years earlier, Liam had been a different man. He'd worn tailored shirts and steel-toed boots, carried a clipboard and a reputation for being the engineer who wouldn't sign off on anything unless it was perfect. His team respected him, his supervisors trusted him, and when he discovered the cost-cutting measure buried in a revised procurement order, a 2.3% reduction in a critical fuel line alloy, He did exactly what he was supposed to do. He wrote a risk assessment memo, 16 pages, annotated with stress calculations and failure mode projections. He sent it to quality assurance, to legal, to finance, and to the CEO's office. He followed up twice. He documented everything. Damian Cross, the CFO, had been the one to respond. Liam remembered the meeting. Damian's pale face, his sharp gray eyes, the way his tailored charcoal suit seemed to absorb light. "Your concerns are noted," Damian had said, his voice smooth and cold, "but the engineering tolerance is well within acceptable limits. We're not compromising safety. We're optimizing efficiency. Efficiency doesn't mean anything if a fuel line ruptures at altitude," Liam had replied. Damian smiled a thin, humorless expression. "That's why we have redundancy protocols. This conversation is over." 2 weeks later, a pressure valve failed during a stress test in the fabrication wing. No injuries, no fire, just a loud pop, some smoke, and a scramble to shut down the line. It should have triggered a root cause analysis. Instead, it triggered a witch hunt. Liam was called into HR on a Friday afternoon. They had a folder. Inside were emails, incident reports, and a memo he'd never seen before. One that accused him of violating safety protocols by running unauthorized tests. It was signed by Damian Cross and countersigned by the head of legal. "This is fabricated," Liam said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline. "I didn't run unauthorized tests. I flagged a legitimate safety risk." The HR manager, a thin woman with wire-rimmed glasses, didn't meet his eyes. "We've completed our investigation, Mr. Carter. The findings indicate gross negligence. Your employment is terminated effective immediately, and we'll be referring this matter to the state licensing board." "You can't be serious." She slid a termination letter across the table. At the bottom, in digital blue ink, was the signature. "Serena Whitaker, Chief Executive Officer." Liam stared at it. She signed this. "All executive terminations require CEO approval." He picked up the letter, hands shaking. "I want to speak to her." "That won't be possible. Security will escort you out." And just like that, it was over. 15 years of work. A career built on integrity gone. The lawsuits came next. The company claimed damages. His engineering license was suspended pending review. And Bridget, his wife of 8 years, sat him down one night and said the words that broke him more than any termination letter ever could. "I can't do this anymore, Liam. I can't watch you destroy yourself fighting a battle you'll never win." She left, took half of what little they had left and walked out. And Liam was left with Emma, a stack of legal bills, and a choice. Rage against the machine or rebuild. He chose to rebuild. Not because he'd forgiven, not because he'd forgotten, but because Emma was watching, and he needed her to see that good men didn't quit just because the world was unjust. When Serena Whitaker woke in the ICU 2 days after the accident, the first thing she felt was pain, a dull, throbbing ache that radiated from her ribs and skull. The second thing she felt was confusion. White ceiling, beeping monitors, a tube in her nose. She tried to sit up and couldn't. A nurse appeared, calm and efficient. "Easy, Miss Whitaker. You're in the hospital. You were in a car accident. You're safe now." Serena's throat was dry. "What happened?" "You lost control on the Riverside Bridge. Your car hit the guardrail. You went into cardiac arrest at the scene. But the paramedics brought you back. You're very lucky." "Lucky?" The word felt strange. Serena closed her eyes and tried to remember. Rain headlights. The feeling of the wheel jerking out of her hands. And then, nothing. "Who?" Her voice cracked. "Who saved me?" The nurse hesitated. "The paramedic who performed CPR. His name is Liam Carter." The name hit her like cold water. Liam Carter. She knew that name. She'd seen it somewhere recently, in a file she couldn't quite place. but her head was too foggy, the pain too sharp. She let herself drift back into sleep. The next time she woke, the fog had lifted slightly. Dr. Bennett stood by her bed, reviewing charts. "Welcome back, Miss Whitaker. How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck." "Close enough. You've got 3 fractured ribs, a mild concussion, and some lacerations, but no internal bleeding. You'll recover fully with time and rest." "Can I talk to him? The paramedic?" Dr. Bennett's expression shifted just slightly. "I'll see if he's available." An hour later, Liam Carter stood in the doorway of her room, still in his uniform, his expression unreadable. Serena looked at him, really looked, and felt a jolt of recognition she couldn't explain. "You saved my life," she said, her voice soft. He stepped inside, kept his distance. "I did my job. I want to thank you." "You just did." There was something cold in his tone, something guarded. Serena frowned. "Have we met before?" Liam's jaw tightened. "You wouldn't remember." "What does that mean?" He didn't answer. Instead, he turned toward the door. "Wait." Serena's voice was sharper now. "Please, I owe you more than a thank you. If there's anything I can do." "There's nothing you can do," Liam said quietly. And then he walked out. Serena stared at the empty doorway, confusion and something heavier settling in her chest. She reached for her phone, scrolled through her contacts, and called her assistant. "I need a file. Personnel records from 3 years ago. Anyone named Liam Carter." The file arrived 2 hours later, and as Serena read through the termination memo, the fabricated incident reports, the legal maneuvering, her hands started to shake. She saw her own signature at the bottom of the dismissal letter. She didn't remember signing it. She'd signed hundreds of documents that year, most of them auto-approved by her assistant, based on recommendations from department heads. But this one had destroyed a man's life. She kept reading. Liam Carter had been right. The cost-cutting measure had introduced risk. The incident hadn't been his fault. And Damian Cross had orchestrated the entire cover-up, using her signature as the final seal. Serena closed the file and pressed her palms against her eyes. She'd always told herself that tough decisions came with leadership, that she couldn't second-guess every termination, every restructuring, every cost analysis. But this wasn't a tough decision. This was a lie, and she'd signed her name to it. The door opened, and a small voice said, "Are you the lady my dad saved?" Serena looked up. A little girl stood in the doorway, maybe 7 or 8, with dark curls and wide, curious eyes. She held a Tupperware container in both hands. "Yes," Serena said. "I am. What's your name?" "Emma. Emma Carter." She stepped closer, held out the container. "I brought you pancakes. My dad says you need to eat to get strong again." Serena took the container, her throat tightening. "Thank you, Emma. That's very kind." Emma tilted her head, studying Serena the way only children do, without pretense, without filter. "My dad helps people. That's what heroes do." Serena felt something crack inside her chest. She looked at this little girl at her homemade pancakes and her simple, unshakable belief that her father was a hero, and realized with sickening clarity what she'd taken from them. Not just a job, not just a career, but security, stability. The kind of life where a 7-year-old didn't have to make pancakes for her father because they couldn't afford anything else. "Your dad," Serena said softly, "is absolutely a hero." Emma beamed. "I know." She turned to leave, then paused. "I hope you feel better soon." "Thank you, Emma." When the door closed, Serena opened the Tupperware. Tea. The pancakes were slightly burnt, made with love and whatever ingredients a struggling family could afford. She took a bite, and it tasted like shame. She picked up her phone and called Damian Cross. "I want to see you now." When Serena was discharged 3 days later, she didn't go home. She went to her office, locked the door, and started pulling files. 3 years of financial reports, safety audits, personnel records, procurement orders. She worked through the night, cross-referencing data, following paper trails, and slowly, methodically, building a picture of what Damien Cross had done. And when dawn broke over Alexandria Harbor, Serena made a decision. She couldn't undo the past, but she could face it. She called Liam Carter's number, found it in the paramedic dispatch records, and left a voicemail. "Mr. Carter, this is Serena Whitaker. I know you don't want to hear from me, and I understand why, but I need to talk to you, not as a CEO. As someone who owes you more than an apology. Please, give me a chance to make this right." Liam didn't call back. She tried again the next day, and the day after that, on the 4th attempt, he finally answered. "What do you want?" His voice was flat, exhausted. "I want to hire you," Serena said, "as an independent safety consultant. 30 days, full access to every file, every facility, every record. I'll pay you enough to cover 6 months of rent and legal fees to reinstate your engineering license. And when we're done, whatever we find good or bad goes public." Silence. "Why would you do that?" Liam asked. "Because you were right. And I was wrong. And if I don't fix this, I'm no better than the people who buried you." More silence. "Then I have conditions." "Name them." "Full transparency. No NDAs. No gag orders. Whatever we find, I get to present it myself, and you don't interfere." "Agreed. And if I find evidence of criminal negligence, I go to the authorities. Not you, not your lawyers. Me." "Agreed." Liam exhaled slowly. "When do we start?" "Tomorrow. Meet me at the fabrication plant. 7 a.m. "I'll be there." The next morning, Liam walked into the Whitaker Industries fabrication plant for the first time in 3 years. The smell hit him first. Metal, oil, the sharp tang of welding torch. He'd spent a decade of his life in places like this, and the familiarity was both comforting and painful. Serena was waiting by the main floor entrance, dressed in jeans and a plain jacket, her hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked different from the polished CEO in the business magazines. Smaller, more human. "Thank you for coming," she said. Liam nodded. "Let's get to work." They spent the first week in records pulling procurement orders, maintenance logs, incident reports. Liam worked methodically, annotating discrepancies, flagging patterns. Serena watched, learned, asked questions. She didn't try to justify or defend. She just listened. On day 8, they moved to the production floor. Workers stared as they walked past. A few nodded at Liam, older guys who remembered him, who knew what had happened. One man, a machinist named Eddie, stopped them. "Good to see you back, Carter," Eddie said. "A lot of us knew you got screwed." "Thanks, Eddie." "You going to fix it?" Liam glanced at Serena. "We're trying." They reviewed safety protocols, tested equipment, interviewed floor supervisors, and slowly the picture became clear. Damien Cross had implemented a system of cost-saving measures that bypassed standard checks. He'd automated approvals, created financial incentives for managers who cut corners, and buried dissenting voices under layers of legal threats. But the smoking gun came on day 12, when Liam found the macro. Buried in the procurement software was a script. A tiny piece of code that automatically flagged high-temperature stress tests as optional if the production volume fell below a certain threshold. It had been committed to the internal repository by Damien Cross's user account 3 years ago, 2 weeks before Liam's termination. Liam showed Serena the code. This is how he did it. He built the system to hide the risk, then blamed me when it failed. Serena stared at the screen, her face pale. "Can we trace this? Prove it was deliberate?" "Already did. His digital signature is all over it. And I found payment records. He funneled money to a shell company called Argentum Consulting. Want to guess who owns it? Damien. Bingo." Serena sat down heavily. "He used me. He used my signature, My authority to cover his fraud. Yeah, Liam said. He did. She looked up at him. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know I didn't read that memo. I signed it because I trusted the system, and that was wrong. Liam studied her. 3 years ago, he would have wanted to hear those words more than anything. Now they just felt heavy. Apologies are easy. What are you going to do about it? Whatever it takes, Serena said. Even if it costs me everything. But Damien Cross wasn't going to go quietly. On day 15, during a routine stress test in the fabrication wing, alarms started blaring. The temperature sensors spiked overheating in the fuel line assembly. Liam ran toward the control panel, but the emergency shut-off wasn't responding. Get everyone out, he shouted. Workers scrambled. Serena, who'd been touring a side corridor, found herself cut off by a safety door that had automatically locked. Smoke began seeping through the vents. Liam saw her through the reinforced glass, saw the panic in her eyes, and didn't hesitate. He grabbed a manual override key from the maintenance station, forced the door open, and pulled her into the main corridor. The sprinkler system kicked in. Drenching them both, Liam's forearm was red, blistered from where he'd shielded her from a burst of steam. Are you okay? He asked, breathing hard. She nodded, coughing. You saved me again. Let's make sure there isn't a third time. Later, after the fire department cleared the building and declared it safe, Liam found the source. A temperature sensor had been replaced with a faulty clone calibrated to trigger false readings. The serial number traced back to a supplier linked to Argentum Consulting. Damien tried to kill us, Serena said, her voice shaking. Or at least discredit us. Liam replied, make it look like I'm the problem. Then we go to the board. Now. No. Liam's voice was firm. We go to the media and the authorities. If we try to handle this internally, Damien will spin it. We need transparency. Serena met his eyes. If we do this, the stock will crash. The board will try to remove me. I might lose everything. I know, Liam said quietly. But it's the right thing to do. She took a breath, then nodded. Okay, let's do it right. The press conference was scheduled for the following Monday. Serena stood at a podium in front of a room packed with reporters, cameras, and Whitaker employees. Liam stood off to the side, hands in his pockets, watching. Serena's voice was steady as she began. 3 years ago, Whitaker Industries made a decision that prioritized profit over safety. A senior engineer named Liam Carter identified a critical risk in our fuel line systems and reported it through proper channels. Instead of addressing the risk, we buried it. We terminated Mr. Carter under false pretenses, destroyed his career, and endangered lives to protect our bottom line. The room erupted in murmurs. Cameras flashed. I signed the termination memo. Serena continued. I take full responsibility for that. I didn't read the details. I trusted a system that was designed to hide the truth, and in doing so, I failed, not just Mr. Carter, but every worker in this company, every customer who trusted us, and every principle my father built this company on. She paused, her hands gripping the podium. Today I'm announcing the immediate suspension of Chief Financial Officer Damien Cross, pending a federal investigation into fraud, safety violations, and attempted sabotage. We're cooperating fully with authorities, and we're establishing the Whitaker Safety Trust, an independent fund dedicated to protecting whistleblowers and ensuring that no one at this company ever loses their job for telling the truth again. She looked directly at Liam. Mr. Carter, I can't give you back the 3 years we took from you, but I can give you back your name. Today, Whitaker Industries publicly apologizes and commits to supporting your license reinstatement and compensating you for the harm we caused. The room exploded with questions, but Serena held up a hand. One more thing, effective immediately. I'm stepping down as CEO. I'll remain on the board in an advisory capacity. But this company needs leadership that hasn't compromised its integrity. I won't be that person. Liam watched her walk off the stage, past the shouting reporters, and out a side door. He found her 10 minutes later, sitting alone in a stairwell, her head in her hands. "You didn't have to step down," he said quietly. She looked up, eyes red. "Yes, I did." "Why?" "Because I need to earn the right to lead, and I can't do that from the top. I have to start over like you did." Liam sat down beside her for a long moment. Neither of them spoke. Then Serena said, "I'm sorry. I know I've said it before, but I need you to hear it. Not as a CEO, as a human being. I'm sorry for what I did to you and Emma." Liam nodded slowly. "I believe you. Does that mean you forgive me?" He thought about the 3 years of struggle, the nights Emma had cried because they couldn't afford things, the weight of carrying anger like a stone in his chest, and he thought about the moment in the ER when he'd had the choice to save her or let her die, and how easy it would have been to choose the latter. "Forgiveness isn't a switch," he said finally. "It's a process. But yeah, I'm working on it." Serena smiled. Small, genuine, tired. "That's more than I deserve." "Maybe," Liam said. "But it's what you're getting." In the weeks that followed, Damian Cross was arrested. Federal investigators found evidence of fraud, embezzlement, and deliberate safety violations. The trial made headlines, and when he was led out of the courthouse in handcuffs, still wearing his tailored gray suit and diamond watch, the cameras captured every second. Liam's engineering license was reinstated. The state board issued a formal apology, and job offers started rolling in, but Liam didn't take them. Instead, he accepted a position as Director of Technical Operations for the newly established Whitaker Safety Trust. The trust's mission was simple: protect whistleblowers, fund independent safety audits, and ensure that companies couldn't silence the people who told the truth. It was the kind of work Liam had always believed in, and now he had the resources to do it right. Serena took a leave of absence from Whitaker Industries and enrolled in an EMT training course. She showed up at the same ambulance station where Liam worked, volunteering on community outreach programs, learning CPR, helping organize safety workshops at local schools. One afternoon, they found themselves teaching a first aid class at Emma's elementary school. The kids sat cross-legged on the gym floor, wide-eyed, as Liam demonstrated chest compressions on a dummy. Serena knelt beside a little boy who was struggling to position his hands correctly, guiding him gently. "Like this?" the boy asked. "Perfect," Serena said, smiling. Emma watched from the front row, her homemade bracelet now upgraded with 3 beads labeled Truth, Trust, and Love glinting on her wrist. When the class ended, she ran up to her father and threw her arms around him. "You were amazing, Dad." "We had a good assistant," Liam said, glancing at Serena. Emma turned to Serena, studying her with that same unfiltered curiosity. "Are you going to keep helping people with my dad?" Serena crouched down to Emma's level. "If he'll let me." Emma looked at Liam, then back at Serena. "I think you should. Heroes are better in teams." Later, as they walked along the riverfront, the autumn sun casting long shadows across the water, Serena said, "I spent my whole life thinking leadership meant making hard decisions, but I was just making easy ones. The hard decision is admitting when you're wrong." Liam watched a leaf drift downstream. The hard decision is choosing to be better, even when no one's watching. Serena stopped walking, turned to face him. "I want to be better, not just at this job, but at life, at being human, and I think I need help with that." "What kind of help?" She smiled, a little nervous. "The kind where someone who knows what it's like to start over teaches me how to do it right." Liam held her gaze. Over the past months, something had shifted between them. It wasn't forgiveness, not entirely. It was something quieter, deeper, trust, earned in increments, respect, built through action. and maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something more. "I think I can manage that," he said. A year later, the Whitaker Safety Trust held its first annual conference. Engineers, safety officers, and industry leaders gathered to share best practices, discuss new regulations, and honor whistleblowers who'd spoken up despite the cost. Liam stood on stage, delivering the keynote address. "Saving a life doesn't end with a pulse," he said. "It continues in the culture we build, the systems we create, the people we choose to protect. Every one of you has the power to save lives. Not just in emergencies, but in boardrooms, on factory floors, in the decisions you make when no one's watching." The audience applauded. In the front row, Serena sat beside Emma, both of them beaming with pride. After the speech, Emma ran up and handed Liam a new bracelet. "This one, with 5 beads. I added 2 more," she said. "Courage and hope." Liam slipped it onto his wrist. Perfect. That evening, there was another call. A cardiac arrest at a downtown restaurant. Liam, Serena, now a certified EMT, and their team responded together. They worked in sync, each movement precise, each decision clear. When the patient's pulse returned, they locked eyes across the gurney, and Serena whispered, "You saved me twice. Let me spend my life saving with you." Liam smiled. "I think we already are." The ambulance doors closed, the sirens wailed, and as they drove into the night, the city lights blurring past. 2 people who'd once been on opposite sides of a terrible mistake found themselves on the same side of something beautiful. A second chance. If you believe that truth and humanity can heal even the deepest wounds, share this story. One click might give someone else the courage to start over,